I know I don't have an access code, so we're just gonna do a quick little cute video on our Instagram and our Twitter, and being like, hey,
can we still end at 12? Because me and Maddie have another live chat at 12:45.
Yeah.
And we have to go back up to our other battery.
Let's just do quick.
Wait, what time are we going on right now?
Pretty much, yeah. Right after I do this video, I'm posting on Twitter to update everyone. Okay. Brie Andres, Andre Champagne, Maddie
Andres.
Brie Andres, and then Maddie Erickson. Maddie Erickson. Okay. Hi, this is Patricia Caputo, Brie Andres, and Andre Champagne here. We are having some technical difficulties on the radio end, but we will be live streaming from Tiger TV's YouTube. How can they find that, Brie?
They can find it on LSU Tiger TV on YouTube, and it's also going to go to our Twitter as well at LSU Tiger TV. You can hear the KLSU Tiger TV tailgate show.
Yes, we are starting right now, so make sure that you tune in.
Yeah. Which one's your hotspot?
iPhone 3.
Maddie, did you ever send me those?
It's in the shared document with you.
Okay.
I do not see iPhone 3 on here. I might just have to go off my phone.
Yeah, just do that.
How sad is that?
Did you find it, Maddie?
The Santa?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You got it?
We'll be
Yep.
fine.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, Maddie Eckerson.
Erickson.
Oh my God.
Write it down.
Eric.
It's spelled just how it sounds.
Eric. Son.
Yeah.
All right.
Nope.
Andres.
Put and. The word and. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Here we go. And we can just start whenever.
Wait, you want to pull up the live stream just to make sure we're
Oh,
going?
yeah, perfect.
Oh, Bree, you're going off the jump.
Huh?
You're just going straight up.
What do you mean?
No, she's questions
Oh.
right there.
Wait, no.
Oh.
Let me tell you. Because if you just put in Tiger TV,
Okay,
it's gonna come
perfect.
up with like a bunch of other stuff. All right,
Yeah,
we're live streaming.
Okay, perfect.
Margaret, if you can hear me, we're ready to go.
Awesome.
I would just put it right there until we pop up.
Okay.
That way you can introduce us.
Sound level should all be good.
I have to video this for
Oh, does
TikTok.
anyone have a pen?
There's a pen right there.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and then I'll keep my phone out for Slack.
Wait, I did film this for TikTok. Everybody wave. Okay.
First just said go. Okay.
Alright.
Welcome in to the KLSU Tailgate Show. I'm your host, Patricia Caputo. Joining me today is Andre Champagne and Brie Andres. How are you doing today, Brie?
I'm good. I'm ready to get this game started.
Andre, how are you?
Same. A lot of anticipation today.
A lot of anticipation. LSU will take on Georgia in the SEC championship game today in Mercedes-Benz Stadium at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Central Time. So let's get started and let's start breaking down this LSU offense. Brie, Jaden Daniels, we know how well he can use his mobility, his legs. It's been such an important part of this season.
Yeah.
But he also has to throw the deep ball. He hasn't done that very much this season. So how important is that against this Georgia team today?
I think it's vital. I think he needs to. I think he doesn't really have much of a choice. Now, they say that after his injury against A&M that he's back to normal. He's going to be able to play. But in my heart, I don't know if he's 100%. I mean, it only happened a week ago, so I don't know if he's 100% after coming off that injury. And if he continues, to run how he does, which is effective. A lot of fans find that frustrating that he runs so much, but he does it effectively. He gets the first downs, he gets the touchdowns, he gets the yardage. So it's not like he's just running just to run, right? But yes, I think he does need to utilize his receivers. I mean, you look at this receiving core, right? You have Kayshawn Boutte, who's expected to be one of the best college football players in the country this season. He hasn't really done too much. I think he only has one touchdown. He gets a couple yards every game, but he hasn't done anything extravagant. I think this could really be his breakout game, and this can be something that's very good for to end his college career, because I think we all know he's going to go to the draft. And then his favorite target all season in this receiving core is Malik Neighbors. Use him, use Mason Taylor, use Cole Taylor, use the receivers that you have, because they are very talented. They were all 4 or 5 stars. He could use the running backs too. I mean, you got John Emery, Noah Kane, Williams coming back, and he's really been strong. He's been pretty much running back one for most of the season after Armani Goodwin went out. So I think he really needs to utilize his weapons as best of his ability, because I don't think he can afford to run without risking his own injury happening again.
Correct. Andre, what do we think?
I mean, yeah, I agree. I just think teams are starting to figure out JD5, and that's going to be a problem for LSU. They're going to have to pass it deep, and it's not going to be like short passes are going to work for a while, but
Right.
Georgia's DBs are very good. So, I mean, LSU's receivers have played down to their competition all season, so this is going to be have to be their best game.
I really think that they're way more talented and they have more ability than what they've been leading on.
Yep.
But then again, the offensive scheme hasn't really been through the air this year. Like, it
Right.
hasn't really been a really like pass-heavy offense or really
Downfield
a downfield
shots,
offense. Yeah, it's never really been anything like that. And we saw here little like spikes here and there of like deep balls and really good catches and stuff like that. I would like to see more of that, because Brian Kelly said it on Thursday. He was like, you can't be predictable. If you're predictable, they're going to know what you're going to do, and defenses are going to take that away. They can't know where you're going to throw the ball every time. So I understand that Malik Neighbors is Jaden's favorite target, and that's great because Malik is effective. But we can't always throw to Malik, because
Right.
then they're going to figure
Correct.
it out and they're going to double cover Malik, and they're going to lock in on him, and they're not. It's going to make it a really, really long game if they can't get that offense moving fast.
And before the Alabama game, Jaden Daniels had only thrown 11 passes for over 20 yards this season. So that's something that he has to do. Part of that, he was dealing with a back strain earlier in the season, so that could have been an excuse to begin with, but not anymore. I know that he is hurt. He's still dealing with that ankle injury. But if you want to beat a team like Georgia, you have to throw the deep ball, and you can't just run all of the time. But sometimes that has to do with the offensive line, and LSU's offensive line has had its struggle. They played a great game against Alabama using that max protection, and then the last 3 games, they have not been up to par. They struggled against Arkansas. You could blame the cold. And then they have that game against UAB, and then last week against Texas A&M, you saw some of the similar struggles you did earlier in the season. So, Andre, how does this team get back to the way they played against Alabama in their win against Alabama?
Right, the offensive line just has to get better at doubling certain players at certain points. I think the LSU offensive line will have to double team Jalen Carter all the game, just all the time, because you're going to have to just do better of seeing the blitzes come off of Georgia's packages, and they didn't do that against A&M last weekend. It was just bad.
Right.
They had corners coming in hot, got to Jaden, and that can't happen this weekend.
I feel like Jaden has gotten sacked one too many times this season.
41 times to be exact.
That's obscene, and like some of that you can kind of blame like Jaden holding on to the ball for too long, because it's only like so long that an offensive lineman can hold off a defense. But at the same time, sometimes they'll blitz and he's sacked like before he even gets a chance to check down. So like the offensive line definitely needs to get better. But then you have to also credit, you have 2 true freshmen, and granted they are very talented and they have done great this season, but they're still learning this game, right? After Bama, Brian Kelly said that Will Campbell is very accountable when it comes to his mistakes. He said he'll run off the field, you'll tell him what he did wrong, and he will promise you he'll never do it again for the rest of his life, which I thought was funny. But it's good that they're learning, but they are still freshmen. They have never faced a team like Georgia this season. Like, we thought Bama was going to be that team, but in reality, Bama hasn't really been, like, even though they only have 2 losses, we've seen some big margin of error for them this season. So I think Georgia, I mean, they're the number 1 team in the country for a reason.
Yep.
And their defensive line, they're huge.
Elite.
They're huge. Like, these are not, no, this is like not a game to like take lightly at all. And I think they realize that. But I think with Jaden coming off an injury, I think BK and Mike Denbrock, and even Cortez Hankton as a passing game coordinator, I think they kind of like changed their scheme or maybe changed their game plan on how they're going to approach this defense, because they want to make sure that Jaden stays healthy.
Yes, as we had mentioned, the offensive line has allowed Jaden Daniels to get sacked 41 times. Georgia's offensive line, Seston Bennett has only gotten sacked 7 this season. So that could be a big game changer in this game. They're ranked number 2, that offensive line, in terms of allowing sacks. Let's move on to what Brian Kelly had to say about this UAG defense. He said in order to defeat them, they're going to have to eliminate the negative plays, and LSU is going to have to try to convert on first down and second down. So if you're speaking of the in-depth wide receiver core, we had mentioned Malik Neighbors and Keyshawn Boutte, but that's not all. Mason Taylor, who was the star of that Alabama game, who helped the team win. You have Brian Thomas Jr. and Jack Besh, and even Jeray Jenkins, who's often forgot about. He kind of hides in the shadow of Keyshawn Boutte throughout his career. But Bree, we'll start with you, talking about Malik Neighbors, Keyshawn Boutte, and the rest of this wide receiver core. What role did they play in making sure that LSU does convert on first and second downs?
Well, like I said before, they play a major role in it. Like I think the momentum of this game is going to start with the receivers. If they don't pick it up and they're missing catches, I mean, we saw Kyron Lacey drop 2 pretty much wide open catches against A&M, which is really unacceptable. And we saw BK's frustration come out on that on the sideline. So that kind of things can't happen. You have to play, like BK says all the time, you have to play with good technique and good tactical skills. Your head has to be in it. And I say this all the time to really anyone. As much as they say football is a football game, football is a physical game, it's also a mental game. Like, you have to have your head in the right space. You can't be scared of what you're going against. You can't be scared of your opponent. And I think a lot of what happened against Texas A&M was mental. Because they thought, oh, this is Texas A&M. They're a 4-7 team. They're unranked. You know, they haven't been doing so hot. We're already going to SEC championship.
Yeah, Thanksgiving week.
Right. We already had a day off. We're chilling. And BK says it wasn't like that, but it was clear that something was off mentally. Their head was not in it like it has been in the past few weeks. It wasn't that they just got a slow start. They were slow for 4 quarters.
Correct.
You know, usually they'll have we've seen a pattern of a slow start and they'll pick it up in the second half. It was slow the whole game. But like receiving yards wise, like you'll see like one game, like Jaden Daniels won't even throw for 100 yards.
Correct.
And then the very next game, he'll throw for close to 300. So it's just about consistency. And if they want this game to be competitive, if they want to have a chance to win, he needs to throw for close to 300 yards, if not more.
And that is why Georgia is so good, because they are that consistent team. And even though they've been in some tight games this season, they found a way to win and to make plays. So Josh Williams, though, could be a big aspect of this game. He is coming back. He has been nursing that knee injury for the past few weeks. But if you're talking about him, he has led the team in leading rushing just twice this season. Other than that, it's been all Jaden Daniels. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
go
off. I
ahead.
love his story. He came in as a freshman. He was behind guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ty Davis-Price, even John Emery.
Correct.
And he was a walk-on, and he didn't have a scholarship. And he worked his way up. I want to say it was Ed Ogeron who gave him a scholarship, either his sophomore or junior year, something like that.
I believe it was a sophomore year because, I believe a sophomore year.
He earned a scholarship, and he still, after the scholarship, he didn't get much playing time. And, like, it's kind of weird because, like, I think we knew who Josh was just because, like, you know, we're students. But, like, a lot of, like,
everybody was expecting him to be, like, RB3 this year.
Exactly. Like, nobody really thought he was going to be up high in the depth chart, and a lot of national media didn't know who Josh Williams was. If you don't know who Josh Williams is, now you know. Like, it's kind of like Harold Perkins. Like, if you don't know who Harold Perkins is, now you know. Because Josh has really made an impact on this team, and he's worked his way up. And I really think he deserves this spot, and he has been so effective. I saw it when I knew that he was going to be really good for this team this season was against Mississippi State when he scored his first SEC touchdown. And now he has, I think, 5 on the season.
We had the opportunity to interview Josh Williams via Instagram Live, and that's what he had told us. He had great things to say about all the backs and wasn't gloating. He had talked about his story. He is nominated for the Burlsworth Award this season, so that's a walk-on award. Baker Mayfield got it a few years ago. Brandon Burlsworth was one of the greatest walk-ons, in my opinion, to ever walk on to a college football field at Arkansas. He became a Razorback, earned his spot there. Josh Williams did exactly that. And what I love about Josh Williams is he took that opportunity. Armani Goodwin was RB1, the sophomore. He's coming in. Okay, he's going to play for another year. But Brian Kelly gave everybody on this team an opportunity, something that Coach O may not have done, where it would have been once John Emery comes back for suspension, he's that guy. But he hasn't done the job like Josh Williams has this year.
John's biggest problem is ball security.
Correct.
Yeah, ball security. He's effective, and he will run, and he will push himself until he gets that first down. He's not going to give up a run. Like, he's going to run until he gets where he needs to go. But he needs to hold on to the ball better, and I think that's why he kind of lost his spot. Everybody thought John Emery was going to be the starter. Everybody thought that, but, I mean, not many people knew about the whole 2 extra game suspension. But they were like, as soon as he's done with those, after the Southern game, he's going to come back, and he's going to be, you know, running back 1. But he's not that effective. And BK is not going to put somebody in there just because you have seniority. And just because you've been here and you have been effective. If you're still not effective, you're not going to get as much playing time. And granted, John has not had a bad season by any means. When he scored touchdowns in plenty of games. He's come back full force. Bama, I mean, like, he scored did he score a touchdown against A&M too? Like, I want to say 3 touchdowns against A&M.
Auburn.
So he's been effective. Like, granted, like, he's played very well. But that one aspect is just ball security. He cannot turn over the ball.
Now, Andre, do you put your trust, if Josh Williams is not 100%, how much trust are you putting in Noah Cain, the transfer from Penn State, and John Emery, who has technically before this season had not played in 2 years?
I mean, you're going to have to put your trust in all backs today anyway,
Exactly.
because I think all these 3 guys, like we talked about all season, they have a role to play in this offense, and they're really good at playing their role. John Emery is just great at getting that, you know, open space, you know, breaking tackles. Just he's electric in the open field. Josh Williams, he's that guy that's going to fight for every yard. You know, he's going to get you more than you thought he was going to get. And then Noah Cain is just an all-around back. Like, he can pass block for you. He can do what you need him to do. So I think all three backs are going to have a really good game.
I really liked Noah Cain. I saw him a few times in special teams and punt return. I thought he did very well. And we've seen a lot of different punt returners this season and kickoff returners this season because I think, this whole special teams controversy has just been a whole mess, and they're trying to figure out what works. But I feel like we're too late in the season to figure out what works. You should know what works by now. So I'm not sure. I think they might put Gregory Clayton back there. He's been all right, but I think special teams definitely plays a big part in this game. I mean, we all know this is probably the worst special teams performances we have seen from LSU ever. So I think it's really important to be effective. They've only averaging, I think, 8.6 yards per return, and they need to get, if they stand any chance of this offense beating this Georgia defense, they need to get downfield on special teams. They need to make it to almost midfield on returns in order to make this game competitive, and they cannot afford. They have one muff punt, this game's over.
And truthfully, even if you just do that one time, because that changes the whole momentum. You look at that Tennessee game where Jack Besh muffed that punt in the beginning of the game,
everything.
Changed the entire game. Tennessee blows out.
I think there's always one specific moment in every game that sets the tone. For Bama, I think that was Dark Bernard Converse's interception in the end zone to keep Bama from scoring on their first drive. We talked about that early in the week. The defense cannot allow them to score early. They didn't. They stopped the drive. They didn't allow a score until almost till halftime, right? So, and then we look at the Jack Besh thing. We look at the Malik Neighbors muff punt.
Look at the Kyron Lacey drop
Look at
pass.
the Kyron Lacey block. But I think the turning point in that A&M game was the strip sack for fumble recovery to a touchdown. So I think that set the momentum. There's always that one big moment that really sets the mood and the tone of the game. And if they want this game to go in their favor, they need to do it, and they need to do it early.
And you need one player to step up. And someone who could step up today, despite his injury, is Jaden Daniels. We talked in the beginning of the show. His mobility is key for this team. He is likely the leading rusher almost every single game for this team. So what does Georgia do today, Andre? Isn't it important to put a spy on Jaden Daniels? You got to watch out for him.
Yeah, I think they will. And likely, I mean, it's going to be they play 3-4, traditional 3-4. They're going to put two linebackers, and they're going to act like they're blitzing, but they're going to cover a receiver, and they're going to probably spy Daniels all game. Now, with his foot being hurt, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do that, but they're going to try and get to him early,
well,
and it's going to be trouble.
If you look at A&M, they ran a two-man rush the whole game because they studied Jaden. And if you're like BK said, if you're predictable, they're going to shut you down. And that's exactly what A&M's defense did to LSU, and they shut Jaden down. And I feel so bad that he got hurt. Like, he didn't deserve to get hurt, obviously. But if you're running the same thing over and over again, not good things are going to happen.
They're going to pick up on it, right?
They're going to pick up on it. So I think Jaden can't be predictable. He can't, if he wants to run the ball, he's going to do it effectively, go for it. But also, you have to look at the whole field, because you'll have receivers open. And I think that's a big thing that we saw with him not passing, which made people frustrated, right? Because they'll have Kayshawn will be wide open down midfield with nobody around him and can score a touchdown. Jaden's not seeing him. He's looking over here to Malik, or he's looking over here to Mason Taylor.
He doesn't like to stay in the pocket.
Exactly.
You
he doesn't
have
like
to
stay
be
in the
aggressive.
pocket.
I mean, Jaden Daniels, 2/3 of Daniels' runs comes from when a pass is called, according to CBS. So that means that he's opting to run most of the time. You have to pass the ball. You have to be aggressive. You have to throw the ball downfield. Something that if you're an LSU fan, wish happened earlier in the season so we can get over the fear. Throw the interceptions. Okay, today you can't do that in a game against Georgia. You can't
Not against this defense, but they will get it.
Correct, but you still have to find a way to be aggressive. So let's talk a little bit about the Georgia defensive backs, pairing up against guys like Malik Neighbors and Kayshawn Boutte. Andre, who is going up against Malik and who's going up against Kayshawn?
It could be trouble. It could be real big trouble. I can tell you why. Khalil Ringo, probably the best cornerback in the nation. He has not allowed a single touchdown in coverage all season. He only has 2 interceptions, but that's because he's not targeted much. Sorry, but he's going up against Malik.
It's like
probably.
Derek Stingley.
It's going to be Malik.
I think Derek didn't have when Derek was here, he didn't have many targets because they knew that he was coming in hot.
Don't throw it his way, right? But he's so good in coverage, and it's going to be trouble if LSU can't get open. I don't know who else. They're all very good at covering. They're just all very solid. That's something that the Georgia defense is really good at, is just consistently being dominant. And so
Yes.
it's going to be bad.
Definitely. I mean, you even have a guy like Malachi Starks, who's a freshman, but he's come in here. He's been able to make plays for this team. He also has 2 interceptions on the season, as well as Christopher Smith, who has 29 solo tackles this year, also 2 interceptions. So those are some backs that you really have to look out for if you're this LSU team, of course. And if you're knowing Georgia, you know this wide receiver core. This LSU team has depth. And we're talking about all of these defensive backs that they have. Can you say that you're comfortable enough for your guys to play one-on-one against these wideouts, Bree?
That's a hard one because we haven't seen the wide receivers really shine that much this season.
In
Like
one-on-ones.
in one-on-one
Correct.
situations, like we haven't really seen that much. I mean, I think it was kind of cool for Bama to see Eli Ricks and Malik Neighbors kind of go head to head. We kind of thought it was going to be Kayshawn and Malik. But I mean, I'm sorry, Kayshawn and Eli, but it didn't really work out that way. But I mean, Malik still did, he still did his job.
Right.
I think if they can beat him on the run and they can make him some blown coverage, like it could work. But then again, like you look at LSU's defensive backs, they get burnt all the time on blown coverage.
It's bad.
And they'll double cover and still get burnt. So they can't allow that either because we were looking at Georgia's offense. Their top receivers play 3 different positions. Wide receiver, running back, and tight end.
Yes.
Like you have to be able to be versatile, and I think that's what Georgia's offense is good at. But Georgia's offense is also very turnover prone. So I think if the defensive backs can really like hone in on that and try to get turnovers, then it could work. But I don't think they should focus solely on turnovers. Keep the coverage because you get blown on that coverage, you're burnt and you're done.
Yep.
Brian Kelly had mentioned something about turnovers a few weeks ago. He said they're just not reliable. You can't rely, we're going to get a turnover and that's how we're going to win the game. But how you can win the game is making sure that everyone is on their A game. Mason Taylor, go back to the Alabama game. Malik Neighbors, go back to the best game he had, and Kayshawn Boutte, and everything else will fall into place. You even have a guy like Brian Thomas Jr., who is tall, who can make the big plays if Jaden Daniels isn't having the best accurate day considering that injury. We don't know how that's exactly going to pan out just yet. But what we do know about LSU is that this year they're known as a second half team.
Right.
UAG holds teams to just 7 points in the second half this season. So, Bray, how do you ensure that LSU does start off slow if you're Georgia?
One thing that I really respect about this coaching staff is that they read how this game is going, right? Especially defensively with Matt House. Matt House is up for the Broyles Award for the best assistant coach in college football, and he's a finalist for it, which I think he deserves it, considering how well this defense has done, especially in the second half. He reads this offense, and he reads what his team is doing wrong. He makes those adjustments. He goes to that locker room at halftime. He tells them, this is what we need to do, A, B, and C. This is the plan. This is the scheme. This is where you're going to be on the field, and they go out and shut teams out in the second half. Like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, they didn't allow a single score in the second half. They shut them out 42-3 in the second half. So after their last score. So I think defensively is where it's really going to come in as part of that second half team. I honestly think the defense is more reliable than the offense as far as like performance wise. So I think if like we said, the defense getting turnovers, right? I know Ryan Kelly said they're not reliable, but if Georgia's very turnover prone and LSU knows how to make those adjustments, they can read Stetson Bennett like a book by the second half. They can make those turnovers that completely changes the course of the game. And a lot of people want to give up whenever LSU's down, like they were down 17-0 against Auburn and Mississippi State in the first half. They allowed touchdowns within 4 weeks. Within 4 games, they allowed touchdowns within 2 minutes of the game. And people really want to give up after that. They're like, what are they doing? And like, I understand the frustration. But at the same time, you see them come back and they shut people out 42-3.
Jermaine. Yes. So, but that's something that LSU cannot start off slow.
They can't afford. It's like with Bama,
Yep.
they couldn't afford to start off slow, and they didn't. So I just like if you kind of look at this game, how you look at the Bama game, which I think is like pretty comparable because Bama's a very dominant team. They're coached by a very good coach. They go to national championships. They were expected to be here in Atlanta this weekend. But I think if you go into it with the same mindset you go into for the Bama game, and they perform as well as they did, which is what every LSU fan hopes for, obviously. But I think if they go in and they perform with it as well as they did, and they kind of have a good game plan together like they did, and they like have it together, they have their mindset right, like we know we're good enough to beat this team, then they can make it happen. But it's not going to be easy. Georgia isn't going to make it easy on them.
And a guy you have to look out for is Jermaine Dumas-Johnson for Georgia. Roman Harper of SEC Network said that he thinks that he is better than Nakobe Dean. He's just faster. He's just bigger. So that's someone that LSU has to keep their eye on today. And what I also like that Roman Harper said about this LSU offense is that they were the ones being hunted after they beat Alabama, and they didn't handle it very well. And it's true. They got in their own heads. They took that game for Arkansas for granted. Then they went over there to College Station and just said, oh, look, we're going to the SEC championship game next week. There's nothing to worry about here. This team only has 4 wins this season. But Texas A&M proved them wrong, and Arkansas put up a fight as well. So this team definitely has to get out of their own heads, and Georgia could easily take them out of their game if they start off slow. Again, 7 points in the second half. LSU likely scores most of their points in the second half. That's not going to work this week. What you said, Bree, they have to go back to the Alabama game and make sure that they can start off early. But Bree, Andress, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're so excited. We do have Maddie Eckerson coming on in just a little bit. Maddie
Erickson.
Excuse me. Maddie Erickson is coming on in just a little bit. But right now, Andre and I are going to do some stats at the half. We are about halftime for our show.
If you guys want to watch, Tiger TV is also going to go live from Mercedes-Benz Stadium in about an hour. So right after the KLSU show, come right back in a couple minutes after, and we'll be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium going live again. And then tune in to KLSU's Twitter and Instagram, Tiger TV's Twitter and Instagram, and we'll be going live tweeting, giving updates, Instagram stories throughout the game. And then you can tune into our YouTube channel.
And what time is your show? Central Time?
Central Time, we're going to go live at 11:45.
11:45. Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
Central Time.
11:45. Make sure you tune in to Tiger TV. Thank you so much, Bree. We really
No
appreciate
problem.
you coming
Thanks for
on
having
and
me.
joining us. All right, Andre, let's do some stats at the half. We're going to give
All right.
some predictions, what is going to happen, and then we're going to translate these predictions onto our podcast that will be aired next week so we can see how wrong we really were, because usually we are, but maybe we'll be
This
right.
could be bad.
We will see.
Yeah.
Maddie Erickson is joining
Yep.
us now. Finally
All
got
right.
it right. And you can join us in on these stats at the half as
Yeah.
well. I like to do these during games, baseball games, football games, when I'm working in the press box. So I thought that we could have a little fun on the show today as well. So let's start off with this Jaden Daniels, Seston Bennett matchup. Who's going to throw for more passing yards today, Andre?
Stetson. I don't want to say it, but he has more weapons. They've been more consistent. They have the better defense. I have to go with Stetson.
I also agree with that. I'm going with Stetson on this one too. I agree with everything that you said. I think they have the better defense. They have the better coverage. That Stetson's going to get them. He's going to get more.
I can't agree with you guys more. Jaden Daniels and that injury, I'm not 100% sure about how well he'll play with that ankle injury. He's been hurt all season, been struggling, but again, just not 100% sold. He looked very banged up against Texas A&M. If I'm giving my honest opinion in that game, I didn't know if he would be playing this weekend after he was on that 2-point conversion, holding his ankle right before that commercial break. But let's talk about Josh Williams. He is back this week. Knee injury, been struggling with it. Does he rush for over 100 yards today, Maddie?
I think Williams will. I think he's back. He's healthy. Hopefully, that's what we're assuming. I think the return of him as well as Jarek Bernard-Converse will be a huge asset for the Tigers for this game. They need everything that they got to beat Georgia today.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. I'm actually going to go over 115 rushing yards today. Yep. I think Josh Williams is going to have a master class today.
I think Josh Williams has to have a masterclass today if you want to win this game. But I'm gonna say something a little crazy. All right, Josh Williams, yeah, he can run for over 100 yards, but I'm gonna say that Jaden Daniels still has more rushing yards than him.
Okay.
Jaden Daniels, he doesn't care about that ankle. He's fine. It makes me a little nervous, but I think Jaden Daniels will be fine, putting his body on the line. That doesn't seem to be something that he's that concerned about this season. All right, we got Malik Neighbors. We're gonna talk about Brock Bowers in just a little bit, tight end for the University of Georgia. Who has more receiving yards today, Andre? You're going with Malik Neighbors, or are you going with Brock Bowers?
Probably Brock Bowers. Who's going to cover him for LSU? I mean,
True.
let's be honest. I just don't see our linebacker keeping up with them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Brock Bowers is ranked 8th in the ESPN Top 100 players. I think he is extremely talented, and I think he'll beat him.
He leads Georgia in terms of yardage this season, so I do think that Brock Bowers is going to be that main target for Seston Bennett. And I'm not sure because this LSU team doesn't have that dominant wide receiver. It's not like Malik Neighbors is that guy, so I'm just not 100% sure on that. But let's talk a little bit about Harold Perkins and this LSU defense to wrap up the stats at the half. Harold Perkins, how many sacks does he have today, Maddie?
I'm going to go with three
Okay.
sacks. I think it's going to be tough because Georgia's defense will shine through and through. So he's going to have to play a game if he wants to stand out, and take down Georgia's offense.
Andre?
I'm going to hold it up to the camera real quick. Zero.
Zero.
I think Georgia's offensive line, they're going to have it figured out. They're watching so much tape on Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins can only pretty much rush the quarterback. As great as he is, he's going to get to the quarterback. He's not going to get a sack, though. Stetson's very good at moving outside the pocket. You have to take that into effect. Those Georgia offensive linemen are a different breed. I don't think he's going to get a one.
I want to be like crazy. It's like Arkansas game. He's going to have 8. Let's go. But the truth is, I see him having, I'll go with 2.
Yeah.
He'll have 2 sacks throughout the
lot.
game. That's a lot. Maybe we're asking for a lot, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we are stretching it maybe just a little bit, but I do think he has shown himself this season, and I think he has what it takes to prove himself tonight.
One last question for the stats at the half. Does a quarterback get picked off in this game? And if so, who picks off the quarterback?
Stetson. I think Stetson's going to throw more interceptions than Jaden.
Wow, Andre, you're just hot takes today.
Wow, I mean, they throw it more. They do throw it more. I could see Jaden maybe fumbling it again, as much as I hate to say that. But I think Stetson, there's a very good possibility that, you lead him to some bad passes, they can make him really pay for it, and that could get him in his head.
I'm going to have to go with Jaden Daniels on this one. I think his ankle injury is going to be the difference this game. He's not going to run the ball as much as he normally does. I think there's going to be more throws. That's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to make those early throws. And so I think it'll be him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels as well. I'm not exactly sure who will pick him off, but I could look at a guy like Christopher Smith. We had mentioned the 2 interceptions on the season, 46 tackles this season. I could see him just coming in picking off Jaden Daniels specifically because of that injury. I wrote it all down, all right? So we're going to double check. We're going to check in when we do our podcast of how right or how wrong we really were. That has been stats.
This could be bad.
It could be bad.
Right.
I'm usually wrong.
For both of us. This could be catastrophic.
But maybe it could be really good. We'll see. Okay. We're going to move on to LSU's offense and talk a little bit about them. First of all, Jaden Daniels. We talked about his throwing game, right? We talked about, we are not going to talk. We'd already talked about Jaden Daniels and this offensive line. But let's talk about this Georgia offense, right? This Georgia offense coming in. They are 12-0 on the year. Seston Bennett last year having that flip phone because he had to focus, and he got rid of that this year, and it's been a little different. Georgia has been in some tight games. I like to study a lot before the show, and what I was looking at, what I found most notable when I was studying is people saying that Seston Bennett is a system quarterback. They said the same thing about Dak Prescott. They said the same thing about Will Rogers now at Mississippi State. So, Andre, what do you think? Is he really a system quarterback?
He's a system quarterback, but he's a really good system quarterback. There's a difference. He's been at Georgia for so long now that he's just mastered that offense. It's kind of hard for you not to when you've been there for so long. So I'd hope you're good at that point. You know what I'm saying? But he has all the weapons he needs. So I really do think he's not an NFL quarterback. I think everybody knows that.
Okay.
But he's a great college quarterback.
Yeah.
So
very true. And I mean, you look at this team, when he does get out of his system a little bit, that's when he tends to throw that interception, and that's when things tend to get a little bit rocky. But let's talk about Harold Perkins now. I know we're talking about this Georgia offense, Maddie, but the spy on Harold Perkins, how important is that today? Maybe he'll have 0 sacks, but you're saying he has 3, so how important is it going to be?
Yep, we got different views on that.
Yeah.
I definitely think, they studied Perkins. They studied him through and through because he has been a weapon for LSU all season. So I think they've been studying him enough to know what he's going to do, where he's going to go, and who he's going to go for. So I think they did definitely put a spy on him, and they're going to be watching him all game. And I think that could be the determining factor, whether he gets, 0 or 3,
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think they will spy him, but I think they're going to do a really good job of doing that and shutting him down, where it opens up for more like guys like Ojulari or Ali Gay kind of to get in the backfield.
And that's exactly what happened versus Arkansas. That team focused so much on Ojulari and Gay that they forgot to focus on Harold Perkins. And then by the second half, it was like Harold Perkins is single-handedly destroying our offense right now. You have to look out for them. I don't see Georgia making that same mistake. I agree. You got to put that spy on them. And 2 of those spies could be either Kenny McIntosh or Kendall Milton. But that's not all that Georgia sees in these 2 backs. They're not just here to block. They're also here to make huge plays with their run game. So if you're handing the ball off to Kenny McIntosh, to Kendall Milton, this could easily wear down LSU's defense, who has struggled in the last 3 weeks and has struggled all season with that ground game. Maddie, how important is it to start the ball, run the ball early for Georgia?
It is very important. I think, as you mentioned earlier, LSU has been known as like a second-half team all season. And I think in order for LSU to apply pressure to Georgia, they need to get a start early in the game or it's game over. I mean, as soon as Georgia gets ahead, it's over for LSU.
I completely agree. I think just after seeing what LSU gave up to A&M in the ground game, you can't really get confident for this LSU defense. I mean, you thought Matt House had it figured out, and then a hurt running back went and rushed for 230 on you. So you can really not be comfortable whatsoever with these guys. Georgia's got way more talent than A&M. So I mean, you have to take that into account. But I think it is about shutting down that run game first, and then kind of rely on your DBs to maybe hold up.
This LSU team has allowed 100-plus rushing yards in every game except 3 this season, and 3 of those games where they allowed 100-plus rushing yards, the backs ran for 200-plus rushing yards. So it's been a problem all year for this LSU defense to be able to contain that ground game. Georgia can easily take advantage of that today. If they throw the ball, but they also start off running, wear the defense out, it could definitely be trouble for this LSU defensive line especially. But now, Maddie, let's talk about the tight ends for Georgia. Brock Bowers is a name that you just have to mention. Brian mentioned him before. He's just a guy that you have to talk about. We saw him today with his NIL deal on a bus. He's just the guy right now in Athens. So if you're looking at this tight end group, what do they bring to this team?
They bring power. They are dominant out on that field. And I think that they will bring their very best game today. I'm sure you guys talked about this earlier, but Georgia doesn't need this title to make it to the playoffs.
Correct.
And that's the interesting thing about this game, because regardless if LSU wins, we're still not making it to the playoffs. Yep. So there's a little bit of pressure on both teams, not necessarily because we need this to get to the championship, but I think that it'll be important. Both teams are playing at different stakes, and I think that they need to utilize every single position on that field in order to win.
Correct. Andre, what do we think?
Yeah. Pretty much like Maddie said. I mean, Georgia has the best tight end room in the nation. With Darnell Washington, of course, best tight end in the nation. Brock Bowers, he plays like a wide receiver, and he's built like a tight end. I mean, that's NFL. Like, if you're an NFL scout and you see that guy play, like, I would draft him first round. I would. Yeah. He plays like a receiver, and guys like Travis Kelce, I would compare him to that. But they're so
hot takes today. Wow.
I mean,
Travis Kelce.
These guys just have the ability. They create plays out of nothing.
Yes.
And it's hard to account for them because they're always open.
46 reception this season for Brock Bowers and 5 touchdowns. That ties with Ladd McConkey in terms of receptions. Ladd McConkey, a wide receiver that you have to look out for today. You're looking out for McIntosh, you're looking out for Bennett and Bowers, but McConkey's also out there. He also punt returns, kick returns, so it's something else that they haven't had the issues that LSU has had on special teams. These lads really been able to come into his own and come into that role. We have about 15 minutes left with the show, so let's do some trivia because I love to ask questions, and at least I don't have to be wrong on this one, right? But we're going to do some multiple choice. We'll do some short answer questions. I'm just going to ask you all a few. So let's get started. All right. So who won the MVP? Back in 2011, UAG and LSU has met 5 times. This is their 5th meeting thus far. And they met in 2011. LSU defeated UAG 42-10. Who was the MVP of that game? We'll give.
You want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Do you want me to do multiple choice?
It's got to be Tyrann Mathieu. Give me Tyrann Mathieu.
Are you going with Tyrann? We have Tyrann Mathieu, Odell Beckham Jr., Morris Claiborne, former Dallas Cowboy, or quarterback Jordan Jefferson.
Tyrann Mathieu.
Y'all right.
It was Tyrann. It was the punt
easy.
Return touchdown.
62-yard punt return touchdown allowed LSU to score twice because of 2 fumble recoveries. So Tyrann Mathieu in that game. I like the LSU history, Andre. I'll give you credit for that. I knew, I was like, this is going to be an easy one for him.
This was an easy one.
Okay. Well, maybe pop culture will be a little more difficult for you, Andre. LSU in 2019, with arguably one of the greatest college football teams of all time, defeated Georgia in the SEC championship game. What was the highest grossing film that year? We have A, The Lion King, B, The Toy Story 4, C, another Disney movie, Frozen 2, or D, Avengers Endgame.
Endgame, right? It's got to be Endgame.
I was going to go with that one, too. I was going to go with that one, too.
You gave 3 and then, like, a really highlighter right there, Patricia.
Maybe I haven't even watched Avengers Endgame.
In all honesty, I haven't either, but I saw so much advertising for it, and I remember that. Yes.
These questions are too easy. I
hit the
really
box
thought I was
charts.
going to stump you on that one. I'm not going to lie. It was the 5th film to gross over $2 billion worldwide that year. Okay, maybe this is one
Yep.
that y'all will
Maddie,
finally
you can go
struggle
then.
on a
Okay.
little bit. LSU has played Tennessee. Tennessee was expected to possibly come to this SEC championship game. Unfortunately, they lost a few games, especially that one to South Carolina. Hendon Hooker tears his ACL, and unfortunately, Tennessee's season essentially goes down the drain. But LSU has played Tennessee in 2 SEC championship games. One in 2001 and one in 2007. I was born in 2003, so when I was looking up 2001 songs, I said, all right, we're going to go with 2007 because I didn't know any of the 2001 songs. So what was the number 1 song on the Billboard Top 100 in December when LSU defeated Tennessee 21-14 in 2007? Was it A, No One by Alicia Keys, B, Low by Flo Rida and T-Pain, C, Big Girls Don't Cry by Fergie, or D, My Girl, Taylor Swift, Our Song? Maddie?
It's definitely not Taylor Swift because I remember I was a little bit older than 3 years old when that song came out. But I'm going to have to go with Low.
Low? Okay.
You're going with Low. I'm going with Big Girls Don't Cry because I remember when I was little, that song played on the radio all the time. So I'm just gonna guess with that.
For the
one.
last time this season, I can kind of pull my lead course, so not so fast. You both are wrong. It's
Close.
No One by Alicia Keys.
Wow.
I was just as surprised as y'all because I was like, Big Girls Don't Cry. That was the song back in
That was the
2007.
song.
I was like, yes. So Big Girls Don't Cry was at number 20. Our Song, you were right, at number 23. Low was at number 4. And then No One by Alicia Keys, at least in that week of December 8th, it was ranked number 1. All right, let's get back to some football questions. At least I stumped you guys on one, thankfully. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, these are kind of easy. But let's see if we can get these. So we have only 9 times, actually, 3 lost teams have made it to the SEC championship game, LSU being one of them. Now they'll be the 10th team. But who was the 3rd lost team to go to the SEC championship and win, the only team to ever do it? Was it A, the 2016 Florida Gators, B, LSU in 2001, C, Florida in 2015, or D, Missouri in 2014?
2016 Florida.
2016 Florida. Have any guesses, Maddie?
I'm going to go with Florida.
Florida 2016 or Florida 2015?
2016.
2016. Okay, I stumped you all again, I
Oh
will
my
admit.
gosh.
Now, it couldn't have been Missouri because they were a 2-loss game coming into the SEC championship game back in 2014. They suffered their 3rd loss in that championship game. But it's LSU in 2021. They are the last team to do it, the only 3-loss team to win an SEC championship game. They defeated Tennessee 31-20. Tennessee, the LSU is Tennessee's Achilles heel, except for this season, of course. But in those SEC championship games, they are that Achilles heel. We do have one more that I can throw in there. You guys might get this one, but how many times have LSU and UAG met in an SEC championship game, and what is their record? I had mentioned 5 times, so what is LSU's record in the SEC championship game against Georgia?
0-2?
No, it's 3-1
Oh,
LSU.
wait. Okay, I thought
Fifth meeting,
I
right?
was thinking
Fifth
of the
meeting,
I
yes.
was thinking of the wrong question.
No,
Sorry
all
about
good. No,
that.
Brian Kelly is 0-2
Yes,
against Kirby
yes.
Smart. That's probably what
I
you're
read
thinking
the
of.
question wrong.
Yes, Brian Kelly 0-2 against Kirby Smart. Just a quick little factoid out there.
Oh.
And Brian Kelly was 0-2 against Nick Saban before that Alabama
That's
game.
right.
So
I
just
remember
saying,
that
it
story.
maybe history could repeat itself. But LSU is 3-1 against Georgia, most notably back in 2019. Defeated them 37-10 in that national championship game. They've met back in 2003, 2011, today in 2022, 2019, and 2005. Their only loss was in 2005, where Georgia defeated them 34-14. Now, to finish off, let's talk about this LSU defense. Thank you so much for joining us for trivia. I hope that taught you all some stuff. Maybe we can go listen to No One by Alicia Keys after and put some respect on her name. All right, but let's move on to this LSU defense, who might need its respect today. It's been struggling the last few weeks. Once again, another side of the ball that ever since that Alabama game, unless you're Harold Perkins with Arkansas, you have not been on your A game. So let's talk about this defensive line, Andre, pairing up against this Georgia offensive line. What do you see?
Yeah, there's a slight little disadvantage for the LSU defensive line because 7 sacks. Only 7 sacks allowed by a Georgia offensive line. That is just not what you want to hear if you're LSU. But I think BJ and Ojulari and Ali Gay are really going to have a great game.
Maddie?
I agree with that. I think that they're going to give it their all tonight. I've said this so many times, but I really do think that this game it's a privilege for them to be here. They did work hard all season, but this is something that no one predicted. Nobody at the beginning of the season would have said that LSU would have been in the SEC championship today. They would not have said that. So I think these players are honored and blessed to be here, and then they're going to take that and run with it.
A year ago yesterday, Andre and I were at the press conference where Brian Kelly was announced as head coach officially. Yep. And if you told me we'd be sitting here in Atlanta in an SEC championship game, I would have laughed in your face. Seriously, I would have been like, yeah, okay, that's probably not going to happen for a few years. But if you're talking about this UGA rather offensive line, they keep their head up, and that's very important. And I physically mean they keep their head up, like not just saying that as a metaphor, but they keep their head up, and it allows the vision for the double teams and allows them to create holes for the running backs. And LSU, we talked about them struggling with that ground game, so that's something that's going to be important. And what's important about this Georgia team is their consistency, and this offensive line is extremely consistent. So don't see them trip up, and they're going to open those holes once again for these running backs for this Georgia backfield. Harold Perkins, we had mentioned him so many times in the show. Right now, he leads freshman all time right now in college football with 7.5 sacks this season. He can be a threat to an offense, but does he have to have a game like he did against Arkansas if LSU wants to win today, Maddie?
I think so. I think Arkansas is a completely different caliber of a team than Georgia is. Georgia is undefeated right now. I mean, that we're going to have to pull out on, they're going to have to bring everything that they have, and he's going to have to play exactly how he did against Arkansas, if not better, and bring more power if LSU wants a chance. However, I don't think that he is the only weapon that we're going to need to use. I think everyone's going to have to work together as a team. I mean, like our special teams, for instance, like they've struggled in the past, as everyone has seen. We're going to need to use all of our weapons in order to take Georgia down.
Correct.
Yeah,
Andre,
I agree. I think he has to have a good game. I don't think it has to be necessarily like crazy good, like 3 sacks. Just his presence has to be good enough, kind of like pressuring the quarterback. Doesn't have to be necessarily, sacking him, but getting to him, throwing him off somehow. But I think he just has to do his part, and then everybody else has to really do their part. The linebackers have to play well. The corners have to, bend, not break.
And LSU has 25 sacks this season. We had mentioned Ojulari, we mentioned Ali Gay, but who's another guy, Andre, that you want to see today come out and have a great game?
Jaquelin Roy, in my opinion.
That's what I
think
say.
Jaquelin Roy, but also Fouché. Fouché's been having really bad time and just tackling. I think the safety group has to have their best game yet.
Correct. Maddie?
I was going to say Fouché as well. I agree with that. Yep.
Jaquelin Roy last week, his performance kind of got put under the rug just because that Texas A&M game, you suffer the loss. It's not something that you want to see. But he had 12 tackles in that game, 4 being solo tackles. So that's another guy that maybe this UGA team isn't focusing on as much because they're saying, okay, we got to focus on Ojulari and Ali Gay and, of course, Harold Perkins. So Roy could come out and really make himself known today that I can do this. I can be a great defender, too. You have to look out for me. You should have watched me a little bit more in film. And let's speak about Jarek Bernard-Converse now, this cornerback for LSU. He is coming back. He was dealing with a concussion. Brian Kelly said that he should be good to go this week. And you saw this last week where there were a lot of mismatch. Sage Ryan specifically mismatched on Muhammad III for Texas A&M, who ended up helping that team win the game. And then you even had to put Jay Ward at that cornerback position because Sage Ryan moved to that nickel spot. So if you're talking about this game, Jarek Bernard-Converse, what kind of impact will he have on this game today?
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, I think the return of these injured players is going to be a huge asset for LSU. I think having Bernard-Converse covering in the secondary will threaten Stetson Bennett's deep throws, and I think that will be one of his biggest impacts of the game tonight.
I completely agree. He's a difference maker when it comes to covering the best receivers on the field. You saw it last week. You're going to see it this week.
Who do you think he covers, Andre?
Probably Ladd. Yeah, probably Ladd.
Ladd McConkey definitely could happen. Speaking of Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, we mentioned those mismatches between Sage Ryan and Jay Ward. He's just not as comfortable, Jay Ward, in that cornerback position as some may have hoped. But the mismatches this year have been common for LSU. Even in that Ole Miss game, you had B.J. Ojulari running down the field trying to cover a wide receiver. It just doesn't work when you're a big, fast linebacker who likely should be rushing the quarterback. So who does Brock Bowers cover this week, Andre?
Mekhi Garner is probably going to be put up on Brock Bowers if I had to guess. He's the most physical corner we have. He's done well. I mean, I think he's done really well. It'll be a weird matchup, but I think he'll actually do well.
Yeah, I think LSU they're gonna have Brock Bowers cover some of LSU's strongest players. So I agree with that.
The only reason I thought that Jarek Bernard-Converse might go up against him is because Mekhi Gardner, what you've seen from him, isn't the best performance the last few weeks. Just the fundamentals of football that I'm just not seeing him exactly possess. But he is one of the best corners for this team. And considering the secondary, Brian Kelly kind of chuckled when he was asked about it. And the struggles that the secondary had in the beginning of the season, bringing back just 2 cornerbacks on scholarship from last season. And Brian Kelly said, well, we're in an SEC championship, aren't we? Like, I mean, they can't be that bad, right? They can't be that horrible. But it's definitely been a struggle for this team this season and something that they're going to have to quickly figure out, especially against these dominant Georgia wideouts and tight ends and even running back like Kenny McIntosh, a guy you have to look out for. LSU, this defeat against Texas A&M. Texas A&M scored 38 points on them. And before that, they have that game against UAB that was almost a guaranteed win, and then you win by 3 points against Arkansas. Does this game get into their head, these past games, or do you just have to look ahead and focus on today?
I think Brian Kelly has said all season that he focuses day to day. He doesn't focus on winning championships or that kind of thing. He focuses on the present. And I think that's what he will instill in his team. So I think that they focus week by week, and each opponent is different. So they're going to study their opponent every week and do their best to take home that win with each opponent.
I agree. I think it's a process. It's just a process. The players know that they're young. They weren't supposed to be here. So, I mean, for them, they're going to go out there and play like they have nothing on the line because they don't.
They don't.
The
There's
pressure is
nothing
off.
to lose. Yes, and that's exactly like going back to what Harper said, that they didn't hunt well. Like, they were being hunted and they didn't handle it very well. And that's something that you have nothing to lose except Kirby Smart getting to say that I won a national championship with a team last season, and I can't win an SEC championship for the past 2 seasons.
And I think to make Georgia's season the true success, they need this title. And they don't necessarily need it to win the national championship, which is the end goal for every team, but they do need this to really, come back from last year's loss in the championship.
But Kirby Smart said, he said, well, no one on this team has won an SEC championship, and it goes to show how important these matchups are, despite them almost having a guaranteed role in the playoffs. But let's wrap up this show with some predictions. My favorite part of the show, for the last time this season, Maddie, LSU versus Georgia, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Central Time in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the SEC championship game. Who wins, and what's the final score?
I'm going to go with 35-10 Georgia.
Okay.
Ooh, wow.
Andre's not happy.
I mean, I'm going to go Georgia 33-30. I think it's going to be a close one.
If Seston Bennett wins today, he will become the oldest quarterback to ever win an SEC championship game. He is 25 years old, and he's also doubted. A lot of Georgia fans are still saying, should he be the starting quarterback? Is he that system quarterback? Seston Bennett, go prove him wrong today, because, you won a natty. That's not enough for these Georgia fans. You need to win the SEC championship game. As for per LSU, they have nothing to lose. Brian Kelly, the only thing he has to lose is that if he does not win today, he will break his streak, as he's gone 6 seasons of having a 10 straight winning season. So that streak will break today if he does not win this game, as he's only won 9 games this season. But I don't know if Brian Kelly's so worried about that. This team has used the excuse for far too long. Oh, well, Miles Frazier said it a few weeks ago against Arkansas. We just got ahead of ourselves. We were still on that Bama high, excited about it. And now they go into Texas A&M. Oh, we were just preparing for the SEC championship game. The excuses are over. But guess what? Kirby Smart doesn't care about excuses. He's a good, well-rounded football team. 15 players went to the NFL draft, 5 of them being from their defense. It doesn't matter. That defense is still one of the best in college football. I say that Georgia comes away with this win today, 31-21. LSU will take on Georgia at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Central Time in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the SEC Championship game. Thank you so much for joining us on the Tailgate Show for the last time this season. I am Patricia Caputo. Joining me today was KLSU's Andre Champagne and Tiger TV's Maddie Eckerson.
Erickson. There you go.
I thought I got it. Maddie Eckerson. There we go.
And Bree Andrus.
And Bree Andrus. Cannot forget about her. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
having
Bree,
me.
come in here.
Yeah.
Yes. Bree Andrus, Maddie Erickson. Why can't I get it right? Bree Andrus.
We're going to make
Maddie
you study
Eckerson.
this after this.
Bree Andrus, Maddie Eckerson.
Erickson.
Right here. It's right
Bree
It's
Andrus,
right there.
Bree Andrus, Andre Champagne. Say it.
Maddie Erickson.
Maddie Erickson and Patricia Caputo. This has been the KLSU Tailgate Show. Thank you so much for joining us today.